Celina Alvarez began a career at Housing Works on the front lines and worked her way up when the last executive director was moving on, handpicked Celina, saw something in her, and she has met and exceeded those expectations and is really one of the heroes in this effort for homelessness response with dignity, for a better LA, a better world, and she does it in so many ways. So without any further ado, let me give it to our keynote speaker, Executive Director of Housing Works, Celina Alvarez. Thank you.
It's an honor to be in community with each of you today as we convene for HPRI's Flourishing and Empowerment Summit. I want to begin by acknowledging the notable diversity of voices in this room. We have researchers, distinguished leaders, service providers, property managers, I see you, Durian, clinicians, funders, philanthropy, frontline workers, people with lived expertise, administrators, visionaries, healers, and advocates. Your presence here today is essential. Throughout the day, I invite you to lean in, to challenge yourselves, to hold each other accountable, to listen deeply, imagine freely, speak truth, and remember that with empowerment begins not with what we do, but how we do it. Standing before you today is not only an honor and a privilege, but also a profound responsibility. I'm here not just as the Executive Director of Housing Works, but also as a 50-year-old woman of color whose life journey thus far has both experienced and witnessed the profound transformation that is possible in one's life when we lean into radical compassion, radical love, and radical leadership. As I enter into my 32nd year of working in nonprofit work in our beloved Los Angeles, I look back at the reel of my life story. I smile, I cry, I grieve, I laugh, I breathe, I love, I let go, and I do it all over again. I have watched lives transform in real time. My life, the lives of the people we serve, and the lives of the frontline workers whose passion is reignited when they too are supported and valued. 2002, the year my life transformed. Like a butterfly, una mariposa, emerging from the cocoon. My son was 4 and my daughter was 8. I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown and needed to flee a relationship where the stakes were high that I would end up strung out, in jail, or dead. I had pretty much become homicidal with a plan, and according to traditional clinical practice, I should have been 5150'd with a report to DCFS being made. Instead, the executive director of LAMP Community, Molly Lowry, Molly made me promise I wouldn't follow through with my plan that night, and that I'd come back to work and meet with her the next morning. You see, I had walked into her office in full meltdown mode, begging her to make sure that if I went to prison for following through with my plan or ended up dead, my kids would go with my parents. I returned to work the next day, and Molly and I sat down to check in. She informed me that I would be starting school in the next week. It would be on Fridays for 4 hours, and I would go to a place called the Southern California Counseling Center, and I would meet a woman named Marianne Diaz. Marianne was running a lay counselor certification course, formerly known as Training Lay Counselors, TLC. It would be during work hours, and I would use the company car since I didn't have a car at that time. So onward I went to school on company time, which meant my significant other at the time didn't need to know any of that. All he knew was that I was going to work every day. Every week, the last 2 hours of class consisted of a process group where students were encouraged to share. I mostly listened. When I did share, it was light and surface level stuff. I remained guarded because I knew if I spoke too much, I would be in danger of children's services knocking at my door. 3 months into the 6-month course, I finally caved. I broke down and outpoured the share like hot lava. All the grief, all the torment, the pain and agony, it all came to a head. That moment was a turning point for me. I was able to get honest and work on an exit plan. 3 months later, I graduated from TLC and had broken free from the chains that were holding me down. I walked away with my 2 children in tow, leaving all material things behind. Wounded and grief-stricken by the magnitude of the tremendous loss of having to walk away, even though it was a life full of chaos, instability, and unpredictability, it wasn't always bad. There were incredibly beautiful times and cherished memories, but when it got dark, those lights went all the way out. The trajectory of my life was forever impacted as a result of a liberatory approach to mental health and employment supports rooted in trauma-informed approach and grounded in true harm reduction principles before it was a thing. Nowadays, a few hours of online training centered on harm reduction gets you a certificate. It's nice, that's what I hear. And because of that, I would argue that most folks who have a harm reduction certification are actually practicing approaches that are harm-inducing versus harm-reducing. Today, I live my life in deep reflection and heightened consciousness. I look back at the milestones, the hurdles, the wounds, the pain, the hurt, the joy, the stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis, my parents dying 6 months apart from one another, the victories, the love, the resentments, the forgiveness, the enlightenment and the clarity, the laughter and the love. Oh, so much love along the way. And I keep going. Learning to be curious about the woman I see in the mirror every day, loving her and embracing her in a new and excitingly unfamiliar way. It also entails a gradual shedding on many levels. No longer will I hold space for that which no longer serves me. We enter the varying phases of our life over several decades learning life lessons the hard way. Why are we so caprichudos, stubborn? This summit's theme, Flourishing and Empowerment, challenges us to explore and envision a city of angels where the folks we collectively serve and the people doing the serving are each living their lives to their fullest potential. At Housing Works, we have spent 17 years walking alongside people who are living and dying on the streets every day, while at the same time we celebrate those who finally make it home. Housing Works has looked to 7 philosophical principles that guide not just our work, but also our humanity. First, we believe that housing is a service. It is a first response, and that having a home begins the journey towards becoming an enfranchised member of their local community. Home begins the journey. U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy speaks to loneliness and isolation as an epidemic. For those living without housing, loneliness is compounded by stigma and invisibility. Frontline workers run the risk of being isolated by burnout. Researchers isolated in data. Executives isolated on the balcony versus the dance floor. I personally enjoy the dance floor so much more than the balcony. Second, we commit to creating a safe and healthy environment. The ability to thrive is only possible in a safe, predictable, trusting, and empowering social environment. Effective supportive services teams are valued members of the community and work together to create vibrant social environments. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community, in spaces where people feel seen, respected, and protected. Third, we model positive behaviors. We maintain that our interactive processes with the folks we serve and with one another creates a lasting, transformative force. Our behaviors are used as a point of reference for folks to measure the appropriateness of their own behavior. We understand that we can influence others' self-perception. Fourth, we hold the truth that it's the behavior, not the person. We maintain that unconditional positive regard helps the folks we serve understand they are valued, and that harmful and disruptive behavior is not acceptable. The focus is on the behavior while communicating that you still value the person. Simply put, focus on the behavior, not the person, because people are not who they are when they are at their worst. Fifth, we practice being non-judgmental, tolerant, and accessible. We understand that social forces such as race, class, gender, poverty, and stigma of mental illness plays a role in the way that the people we serve behave and each other. Team members must be willing to be tolerant, non-judgmental, and skilled in building a fully accessible, inclusive community and housing environment. This looks like meeting people where they are, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Sixth, we remain individualized, adaptive, and flexible. Supportive services, the housing team, and the agency bureaucracies must be willing to be adaptive and flexible. Success is the foundation on which we support community members in rebuilding a constructive life full of purpose and personal meaning. We strive to tailor our support to each person's journey, bending systems to fit people, not the other way around. May you pause the next time you label someone as service resistant. And seventh, we believe in forgiveness. We maintain that forgiveness with a willingness to try again gives success a chance. We focus on the assets folks possess And we maintain that support must be individualized, and the agency's bureaucratic processes and staff members must also be adaptive and flexible in the delivery of support to folks. Practicing forgiveness is not just a moral ideal, but it's a practical tool for healing. We forgive because we know that shame keeps people stuck. Forgiveness is what allows us to move forward. We're looking at adding an 8th principle, one that speaks to the importance of rest and restoration. As Tricia Hersey of the NAP ministry teaches, rest is resistance. And as Corita Kent, the rebel nun, artist, and activist uplifted, art and play are forms of revolutionary hope. These principles are not just words on a wall. They are what keeps us grounded and accountable, and are the reasons we've seen people stabilize, thrive, flourish, and reclaim their own lives, moving towards greater levels of self-sufficiency, engaging in less destructive behaviors to more constructive and productive behaviors.
Is that okay?
According to Wikipedia, flourishing, or human flourishing, is the complete goodness of humans in a developmental lifespan that includes psychological functioning and positive social functioning, along with other basic goods. So basically, it's about well-being, stable mental health, strong social connections, basic needs being met, and personal attainment of goals as a result of the presence of supportive networks and environments. Empowerment is defined as the degree of autonomy and self-determination in people and in communities. This enables them to represent their interest in a responsible and self-determined way, acting on their own authority. It is the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. Empowerment as action refers both to the process of self-empowerment and to the professional support of people, which enables them to overcome their sense of powerlessness and lack of influence, and to recognize their own resources. Around 2010, Molly Lowry coined the term, "whatever it takes for as long as it takes." It was born out of the relentless, round-the-clock work we were doing at Housing Works as part of the Mobile Integrated Services Team, also known as MIST. And it became the philosophy that guided us through some of the most grueling, transformative, and deeply human moments of our work. When MIST launched in 2008, we partnered with local nonprofit permanent supportive housing developers to do eviction prevention and housing retention work with 75 households at risk of eviction due to lease violations such as unauthorized guests, poor housekeeping, and missed recertifications. Technicalities. But the consequences were anything but technical. A legal eviction meant being blacklisted from housing subsidies for at least 5 years. 5 years! That's not just a bureaucratic penalty. That's a pipeline to the streets. So we showed up in homes filled with roaches and bedbugs, in spaces where the air was thick with cigarette smoke and trauma. We cleaned, we intervened, we advocated. We got nicknamed in the sector as Molly's maids. We did the work no one else wanted to do, because if we waited for the system to do right, we'd still be waiting. And we proved something we already knew, that behavior is transitory. but dignity is enduring. With intensive, intentional support, people can stabilize, heal, and thrive. By the end of that 3-year effort, 98% of the households we worked with remained successfully housed. That wasn't a miracle. It was the result of showing up again and again and again in the spirit of whatever it takes for as long as it takes. We built community. We went camping. We danced at the Hollywood Bowl. We treated lice, endured scabies, and yes, I took bed bugs home. But we also saw fewer psychiatric holds. We mediated gang conflicts. We navigated systems that were never designed for the people we serve. And we did it all without asking people to prove they were worthy of housing. We met them where they were because that's where the healing begins. 15 years later, many of those original participants are still connected to us at Housing Works. Not because the funding supports it, but because humanity demands it. We don't close cases when the money runs out. We continue because it's the right thing to do. But let me be clear. Whatever it takes, for as long as it takes, cannot be one-sided. It cannot rest solely on the backs of frontline workers, many of whom come from the communities they serve. The system must be accountable. We need funding that matches the intensity of the work. We need flexibility, not bureaucracy. We need to stop drowning in paperwork and start investing in people. People work versus paperwork. Los Angeles' homeless response system is at a crossroad. Our sector is in the midst of relentless challenges, disjointed service coordination, workforce burnout, and fragile pathways to long-term stability. The people we serve and the frontline staff alike are navigating high-stress environments, often without the material and moral support they need. Today, instead of jumping on that hamster wheel, let's take a breath, let's smile, and let's listen intentionally. Let's not dwell on what is broken. We're here to start building, creating, and innovating. Let's mobilize a movement of flourishing and empowerment, healing hearts, healing minds. Thank you.